Welcome to Brains and Bots. My name is Julissa Germosen. I am an author, a keynote speaker at the intersection of trust, human connection, and AI leadership. I'm also the person who's going to be moderating this incredible panel of experts. I spent 20 years in the technology industry at Microsoft and Salesforce, and in rooms where tech decisions are made. And here is what I know. The conversation about AI and human intelligence has been happening everywhere except in the room with both the brain scientists and the people who are actually building the future, until right now. So let me introduce you all to my colleagues, peers, and friends. Dr. Heather Collins is a cognitive neuroscientist. She studies what actually happens inside our brains when you learn, when you adapt, and when you decide under pressure. She's the science in the room. And Neil Redding is a near futurist who doesn't just predict the future, he makes it practical. He works at the intersection of AI, spatial computing, and what leadership looks like when the environment itself starts to think. And Dan Chuparkoff is in the trenches of reinventing how work gets done with AI. Not the theory, but what we actually need to know. So welcome our friends here today. And let's start with Dr. Heather Collins. Give us 30 seconds, high level, what you want everyone in this audience to know about you, and then we'll go on.
Yeah, I'm Dr. Heather Collins. I'm a cognitive neuroscientist and keynote speaker, and I'm an expert in how the brain learns, remembers, and thinks about information. With respect to AI, I am the go-to person for what our brain is actually doing when you sit down in front of an LLM and interact with it in order to achieve a goal. And I'm the only keynote speaker at the intersection of AI and shoes.
This is true. This is true. Share about your session yesterday, just so people get the...
I had a session yesterday. I recognized some of you, and it was called Couture Cognition, How Fashion Affects Your Brain. So everything I do is all about how our brain interacts with the world and how we can use brain-based strategies to be better at everything we do, from how we present ourselves based on what we're wearing to interacting with AI to build a future.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Neil.
Amazing. So hard I can follow. Thanks, Julissa. Great to be here. So my name is Neil Redding. I don't know if this mic is on. Is it on? Yeah. It's here. It's on. I think it might not be on.
There we go.
I think it did go off, indeed. So yeah, my name is Neil Redding. I'm the near futurist. In brief, I've had a 30-plus year career as a technologist, studied computer science and philosophy, and actually got to college on this music scholarship, piano. So I kind of mention those because I've always had this kind of multidisciplinary, multifaceted interest in the intersection of humans and technology and kind of our environment, as Julissa mentioned, broadly. And the work that I do now as a keynote speaker and thought leader and executive advisor is really focused on practical applications of emerging tech, obviously a lot of AI, but also the mental models and mindsets that allow us to know how to apply this technology in ways that we understand and can integrate more broadly into our organizations and into our lives.
Thank you. Dan.
Awesome. I'm Dan Chuparkoff. This is my 16th South by Southwest, so excited to be back.
That's awesome.
I used to work at Google on the Android operating system. I used to work at McKinsey on technology to power consultants, and then I worked at Atlassian on the Jira product. I've been a product management leader for 30 years. Now I'm helping people to navigate this AI transformation. We've been trying to do digital transformations and mobile transformations and internet transformations for 35 years. Now we have the AI one, and there's lots of lessons that we can learn from how we navigated those other ones. I'm trying to figure out how to help people figure out what they should do with AI next Tuesday. I'm also very practical leaning. That's why Neil and I are friends. And so we're going to dive into some of the ways people are actually using AI to get more work done for their customers.
Thank you so much, Dan. Okay, so the title of this session is Brains and Bots. And we use the term in the description, adaptive learning. So this is where the human intelligence and machine intelligence are creating a continuous loop. And before we get into the conversation, I just want to ensure that we're all working from the same operating model and definition. So question for you, Heather. From a cognitive neuroscience lens, what does adaptation in the brain actually look like? Just, the mechanism behind it. What's actually happening?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what's happening is inside your brain, you have billions of neurons, and these are simply cells that fire electrochemical signals to other cells in order to communicate. So for me to sit here and talk to you right now, I'm using thousands, maybe millions of brain cells, and they're all physically connected in different networks. So there's going to be a network responsible for speaking, learning, remembering, and these networks are all interact with each other. When we engage in adaptive learning, what happens is we update those networks to reflect the current demands of what we're doing. So something that might be kind of a weak connection, you might think of this as driving on a two-lane bumpy country road. Well, with adaptive learning, that's going to shift, and your brain's going to physically change that into a 6-lane information superhighway. Your brain will prune what it doesn't use, and it'll strengthen those networks you need in order to adapt and learn along with AI.
Awesome, thank you. Neil, if you can help us zoom out a bit more, what challenges, say, when these loops live not just, on our day-to-day screens, but actually in our environments? Help us understand spatial computing, presence, ambient context. Zoom out for us just a bit.
Sure. So I think we're establishing a few basic conceptual terms and understandings here. I should just say for anyone in the room that maybe is new to the idea of spatial computing, which is an area I've done quite a bit of work in. Essentially, it's about allowing or enabling computers to understand the physical world, the spatial world that we all inhabit. Essentially, computers have been very bad at that for a very long time, and when we think of working with computers or digital technology, it's always on these 2D screens, right? Whether they're laptops or desktop displays or even slabs in our pockets. But increasingly, and actually this has been accelerated by AI, just like everything else has, computers and software are getting really, really good at understanding, being able to model, simulate, 3D, physics accurate environments. So that's the sort of computer out to the world, but then as you're asking, there's also the sensing and understanding of what's happening in the physical world, so that we can say adaptive intelligence applies not just to our brains, but also to software-based technology.
And Dan, help us understand, in a real work environment, right? What's happening in our organizations on a Tuesday morning? What does adaptive intelligence look like there?
Yeah, I think one of the things I generally talk with people about first is, it's easy to sit in a brainstorming meeting and think of what are some of the ways I could use AI to do some of my work now. What people should do instead is flip that equation first and figure out, what am I spending most of my time doing? And then how can AI help me do that thing, right? A lot of people focus on these shiny bells and whistles, and those are cool, and we will adopt those things also. But if you're only doing that thing one time every 2 weeks, maybe that's not the right place to start. And most people on most teams are spending most of their time in communication, in meetings, in email, in chat, in phone calls. That's the place to optimize. And so the teams that I see really starting to accelerate on their AI journey are the ones that are starting to make their meeting communication load start to shrink by using AI tools to spread information more surgically, not more rapidly, not more information. That's a fire hose. That's not helpful. Well, I want to keep all this information in a database that can be retrieved at the moment people need it, instead of having a meeting just because it's Tuesday.
Yeah, I love the use of the word, using it surgically versus acceleration and, at max capacity. That is really great. So that's helpful, at least for me, and I think all of us in our day-to-day work. How many of you all, raise your hands if you've used AI today in the last 24 hours? Hold them up, in the last 24 hours. Okay, keep them up if you've used it in the last hour. Okay, the last hour, yes. So that's, I would say, 75% of us in this room.
Right, both hands.
Exactly. So, to your point. And then, so question for you all, and you can shout this out. Does your use of AI make you more anxious or more capable? More anxious or more capable? Just shout it out. How, your use of AI? Both, okay, exactly. So I think almost 80% said both, so no one even picked, right? So more anxious and more capable. So here, I mean, the room isn't even split. I think we're at a quorum. And what's interesting is we're having a conversation about our relationship with AI. That's really what it is, right? The precision piece. It's our relationship with the AI. That is the through line throughout the entire day today. Okay, let's shift gears a bit. So there is a study on confidence in AI. So let's talk a little bit about that. Microsoft and Carnegie Mellon revealed in their study last year, 2025, that workers who believed that their AI capability was strong actually had less critical thinking skills applied. Less. This, you know where I'm going, right? This is going to Heather. Nice. So what this really suggests is that it's actually not the LLM itself. What it is our relationship, our working relationship with the model. So Heather, give us the science behind this. What is the brain's superpower that AI genuinely cannot and will never have, especially around attention, especially around meaning making and under emotion? Help us understand that.
Yeah, this is a fantastic question, and I'm not at all surprised by those study results. So there's an interesting relationship that happens when we work with LLMs in that we're essentially offloading our confidence to the LLM. And when we become overly confident in the LLM, our critical thinking skills actually offload and decrease. But they don't have to. And a lot of what I'm hearing from clients right now is, how do we use AI for brain gain instead of brain drain? And I think the first step is you simply ask yourself, am I using this to do exactly what Dan recommended? Am I using this to do these 1,000 little tasks, but more efficiently? Or am I actually offloading my special human skill of critical thinking to this LLM? And rest assured, LLMs are amazing, AI is amazing, but we do still have some human superpowers. And Julissa touched on these exactly. We have meaning making. Our brains are meaning making machines. That's how they operate. And that means the context is really important. So LLMs are great, AI is great, but they're not going to be able to evaluate information in the context of our entire history of life's experience, which is all stored in our brain. They're also emotionally agnostic, at least primarily so. There are some special cases, but primarily they're emotionally agnostic. And for us, emotion's really important. So in your brain, your emotion center, your amygdala, sits right next to your learning and memory center, your hippocampus. They're next door neighbors. So they have shortcut connections, they talk to each other all the time, and emotion is actually a cognition amplifier. And AI is missing that amplifier. So these are a couple of things that are really important for us to keep in mind. And the last thing you mentioned was attention, and we have flexible attention. So we're able to adapt and shift and reallocate our attention and focus elsewhere really quickly and effectively and efficiently. But it's not just about speed. We know AI is fast. We do it intelligently based on everything else we've talked about. Based on our experiences, based on emotional context, based on the meaning that we've made out of a situation. So rest assured that we do still have our own superpowers, and they are helping us every time we use AI.
I would love to add a little bit.
Absolutely. Thanks for jumping
Some of you may
in.
have seen Anthropic, the makers of Claude, put out their Anthropic Economic Index, I think it was called, in January, where one of the highlights of that study was that essentially, and these are their words, how humans prompt is how Claude responds. And they specifically showed a very, accurately quantitative result, a correlation between the level of sophistication that humans use when they prompt Claude and the sophistication that Claude responds with, right? So the point about that and how it's related to this, to my mind, is that there is a motivation. Like if we want to get the most value we can get out of these LLMs, we want to show up with our A game, right? In terms of what we provide, what our intent is, the kind of context that we bring to kind of build on what Dan was sharing. A lot of what I've been speaking about, including in my talk yesterday, is about the critical importance of context. And we understand when we're working with teams and any other people, right, the importance of having shared understanding that is as detailed and nuanced and complete as possible. And this is becoming more and more important with AIs, with LLMs, with agents as well. So I take that as a kind of a sort of prompt or an impetus to me to show up fully, to be as clearly intentional and sophisticated, I guess, and complete when I engage with AI so that I get the best results. And also the important side benefit, or even the primary benefit, is that my cognitive state continues to develop and increase, and I'm not just delegating it to AIs.
So
Garbage in, garbage out.
Yes.
Garbage in,
We've heard this
garbage
our whole
out.
careers, right?
Yes. Critically important, right? We are growing with the LLM. We are meeting it, as you said, bringing in our A game so that we're working in partnership as teams and in individuals as well. And speaking of teams, Dan, if you can maybe share with us some ways that the LLM and the AI is actually making us better, making teams and organizations better.
Yeah.
And then, quite frankly, what's the downside? What's not making us better?
Yeah, I think like one of the advantages I have in this conversation is when working at Atlassian on the Jira product, we had 100,000 teams putting all their work inside of my product. And so I got to see like what are the kinds of things people do at work. And there are 6 kinds of work that we all do, regardless of what industry you're in. And the first 3 are communicate, we talk to people, we do tasks, processes, we follow instructions, and we look for issues. Those 3 things, most of us do in some degree. It's kind of a good percentage of our week. And AI is great at those things. So as you start using AI more and more, you'll see communication lowers a little bit. Process gets automated, investigation, you just get data on the fly out of the box. But the other 3 kinds of work are way harder for AI to do in alignment with what you want in the world. Decision making is the first thing, right? AI won't ever really be as good as decision making as you. If you don't believe me, ask AI what you should have for dinner tonight. Do that every day and see how accurate it matches what you feel like having for dinner. There's no right answer. And a lot of times when we're making decisions at work, there is no right answer also. It's subjective. We take risks. We jump at opportunities. And AI will never do that as well as you. Making decisions, imagining a newer future that's never been in the training data. Like the innovation can't come out of training data. It's already there, it's already in the world. And so we need all of you making some of your own decisions. We need all of you like imagining stuff that doesn't exist yet. And AI will always flounder a little bit in those areas. Now it'll be a brainstorming partner, but it needs you to like look at those brainstormed ideas and decide which one matches your objectives, what you hope to make in the world. And that's, I think, the dichotomy that I think about.
Super helpful. Heather, did you want to add to that?
I did, actually, yeah. This is exactly what I'm sharing with people right now. Garbage in, garbage out, and your prompts matter. And in fact, when it comes to that elevated thinking, I've developed a framework so that we can actually help people use AI as a collaborative thinking partner. And one of the critical elements of this is that this should not be a one-way relationship with AI. You should not be the only one prompting AI. You should always have AI prompt you back. And that means having AI challenge your assumptions, challenge your thinking, challenge your reasoning, and have you forecasting into the future. And the really cool thing is all those memory networks we were talking about earlier, well, all of our memories are actually what enable us to predict the future. So memory is the same brain system as innovation. The more you use it, the stronger it'll get.
Fantastic. Okay, now we're going to get into the heart and meat of this session today. Cognitive atrophy versus cognitive liberation. And I'm going to drop something on you. Here's a study that I don't think will shock many of us from MIT. And it found a phenomenon called cognitive debt. So researchers hooked up EEG signals on 54 people, and they found that people who were using ChatGPT showed lower brain engagement across all 32 segments. Regions, I should say, regions. And when the tool was removed, this is the fascinating part. The users were unable to recover from their previous level of cognitive function. Let that sit with you for a moment as I say it too. So this is cognitive debt. And you know, it's the real deal. It's an actual brain scan, right? So Heather, the cognitive neuroscience, help us understand. So what actually atrophies? What skills are actually atrophying when we stop practicing them?
When we stop practicing them, first, again, the brain operates off of use it or lose it. I cannot emphasize this enough. Whatever you do not exercise in your brain will atrophy and die off. And whether it's recoverable or not, yeah, well, that's a hypothetical question. We're testing it out in real life right now. So first of all, it's going to be your memory system. Your memory system is foundational for pretty much everything you do, whether that's remembering what you ate for breakfast for today versus planning your South by Southwest day for the rest of the afternoon. So memory is the foundation for everything, and when you don't exercise your memory, your actual memory capacity will shrink. You'll be able to process and think about fewer pieces of information at one time. So essentially, you're taking a really, really large database in your brain for information and shrinking it. You're going from a giant warehouse down to a tiny convenience store. And so that's going to affect your outlook on everything. You're also shrinking activity in your prefrontal cortex. That's right up here, the very, very front of your brain. This is a massive amount of real estate in your brain. And it's really important because this is the area responsible for reasoning, thinking, decision-making, creativity, innovation, problem-solving, all of the really complex tasks that we have to do as humans in order to move ourselves, our businesses, and our organizations forward. So when you're offloading that to AI, you are actually reducing your brain's effectiveness at thinking in and of itself. But it doesn't have to be this way. So it's all about how we use AI right now as a collaborative thinking partner. So it's all about having AI prompt us back and help us exercise those activities and not just offloading them.
I think all of us are sort of thinking, let's remember our phone numbers and our spouse's phone numbers and our parents as well, just to help our memory function of the brain. Dan?
Yeah, if I could add something quick onto that. There's an industry that's already been going through this challenge for 40 years, and it's airline pilots, right? Your airline pilot is not flying the plane. You have autopilot, it flies planes, it takes off, it lands, it like routes the plane, it does everything. But somehow we still have pilots. People still want to be pilots, people are still great pilots. If autopilot is off, people still know how to fly planes. That's because we have flight simulators. Right? It's true, if we just let autopilot fly all the planes for all the pilots, the part of the brain that teaches them how to fly planes would atrophy or be used for scrolling the internet. But that doesn't happen because we force pilots to sit in front of a flight simulator for 9 hours a month. And all of you need flight simulators for you and your people on your team. As long as we do that, having autopilot for planes is great. It makes planes safer, it makes it easier, all this stuff. You just need flight simulators to pair with your AI intelligence bots, and then everything will be fine.
I would love to add, actually, even to that, I love this conversation. Really briefly, just to generalize, right? Anytime there is a profound, highly useful new technology, and we've lived through some of these that I'll mention, there is a kind of individual but also collective cultural decision about, do we allow this technology to do this thing that humans have been doing for a long time, or do we insist that we keep developing and maintaining our ability to do the thing manually without the autopilot, right? And so, for example, maybe some of you have lived before and after location services on your phone, right? Like I grew up being able to use paper maps, navigate geographies or towns or what have you that I wasn't familiar with, and I would drive, from place to place, city to city, and use a paper map. My daughter never, she's 26 now, and she's not a kid, but she's also old enough that she never learned to really use a paper map, right? She just had a smartphone with location services. So a question I like to bring to groups like this is is that an important skill that our children may never have, or may have lost at some point, or we may have lost at some point? And I don't think there's a right answer to that necessarily, but this is the kind of question I think we're going to need to ask in a very intentional, aware way. Is it valuable, going back further, or was it a mistake to allow, I don't know, huge agricultural machinery to take over, the grunt work of farming? I mean, I think we generally feel we don't benefit a whole lot as humans from being able to dig and plow and do those things manually, but maybe we did. But I think in each case, especially now that we're into the cognitive and intelligence realm, being awake and intentional about what we are delegating is going to be a really critical mindset to maintain. And this is something that I talk a lot about in the context of this. We're moving into this delegate first mentality in the world. I mean, companies like OpenAI have stated that by the end of this month, actually, their standard pose or gesture in all of their work across the company is we're going to see how we can delegate this task to an agent first before we do it ourselves. And that's a profound shift,
For sure.
one we really want to be mindful of and intentional about.
Absolutely. And we're going to get into agents in the next section. But Dan, if you can help us understand organizations and teams, what are some of the mental muscles that teams must use and leverage and exercise to continue to adapt and grow in organizations?
I think there's a couple of things. First, you asked a question at the beginning of this about is AI enabling more capabilities for you? Mm-hmm. And almost everybody agreed that it is, but that somehow the whole industry is talking about the fact that AI makes you more efficient. You all know as innovators in the world and people that come to this conference, that AI is going to help you do more things, right? It makes you more capable, you make more value for your customers. And then there's this optimization group in the world that's saying well, forget all about that. I just want to make this same exact stuff but with less resources. You don't become the biggest company in the world by constantly shaving people out of your organization. That's not a growth opportunity. People are confused about whether AI makes you more capable or makes you more efficient, and I think all of you are starting to venture in the right place. AI will make you more capable, and in a lot of cases it will also make you more efficient, but there's never a Thursday afternoon where any of you get and you say, I can't think of anything to do tomorrow. I should start taking Fridays off. It doesn't matter how efficient you get,
Right.
You never get to take Fridays off. Because your stakeholders want an infinite amount of features from you. They want better service from you. They want more stuff from you. Your boss wants more from you. You want the next project. You want more projects at the same time. You have infinite work. You can make yourself as efficient as you want. You never get Fridays off. And a lot of people are missing that in the world right now.
I think you just upset a lot of people who want Fridays off.
I'm sorry to say, but like you could take Fridays off, but the team in your industry that's not taking Fridays off is going to kick your ass in the market.
I think we need to bring back the four-day work week, but that's not going to happen anytime soon, for sure. Okay, so question for all of you. Raise your hand if you have not thought through a problem because you knew that you can go to an LLM. Raise your hand. Who's ready to admit that? Brave people in the room, yes. And so what I love about this conversation is that we actually have a choice. We have a choice of what we get to offload and use in the LLMs and what we keep for ourselves, and then working with the LLM. So now we're going to talk about agentic AI and spatial computing and new leadership. Okay, so everything we've talked about so far is assuming that we're all using AI, and we use it as a tool. We pick it up, we work with the tool, we're prompting the tool, and the tool is prompting us, and then we put it down. But what's happening now is that now the tool will actually work for us, right? So let's talk about an Edelman AI Trust research. And what they have found is that the primary obstacle in AI adoption is not about capabilities. It's actually the issue of power, access, and trust. And so now we're moving into a world, and we are already here, where the agents are acting on our behalf. So Neil, if you can help us understand, you've been living in this space for a while now. Walk us through what this actually looks like when humans and agents are orchestrated. When I know you've been leading agentic AI workshops, what happens? What's orchestrating the humans, and what does that look like practically? And if you can possibly share some examples for this, practical example for this room that we can learn from.
Sure. Yeah, so you were touching on the shift that we're undergoing right now from AI being used, and LLM specifically, and chatbot specifically, as tools that we, issue commands to, and we get some kind of response. I think most people, when they first started using ChatGPT or a chatbot, treated it like, oh, it looks like Google, so I'll treat it like Google, right? I'll issue a command or try to issue a question and get an answer back, right? The real shift that happened last year, I describe it as shifting from tool to participant, where the AI is actively involved in the work that we do. The real shift was driven by this capability of reasoning, which many of you have heard about. I mean, there's a lot of talk last year from OpenAI's 03 and 01 models at the beginning of the year to by the end of the year, all of these models are doing what's called reasoning, which allow them to be better thought partners, right? Actually to work through problems on our behalf or for us, right? As you were saying, Julissa. So as AI develops this reasoning capability, this is what's led to the last couple months, this inflection point around long horizon work, being able to reason through larger, more complex problems and do work for many minutes or even hours. Just the past couple months, there's been a huge shift in that area. So now that we have these AIs or these agents able to go off and do work for a long time and actually produce really low or even zero error outputs, there's the question of how do we lead when they're becoming these active participants alongside humans on these teams? And so this term orchestration that I used in my talk yesterday has been used by companies like ServiceNow or Salesforce Agentforce or Claude's agent teams to talk about orchestrating, managing sets of agents that need to work together and have a shared understanding, shared context. I'm using that term more broadly because as humans and AIs are in the same workflows, I think it makes sense to apply a kind of holistic framework to how we manage humans and AIs together. And so I'm using orchestration of humans and AI as a concept to describe that. But you can have the experience, speaking practically, of what it's like to work with a number of agents and sort of be the team lead, you might say, yourself, of a team of agents by using a tool like Claude Code. Anyone in the room use Claude Code? Or even Cowork or OpenAI's tool Codex, where you don't even have to get specific about sort of identifying or naming or creating a specific set of agents. You can see and have the experience of when you express certain kinds of intent, you want to build a piece of software or stand up a website or create a set of documents. You can see in Claude Code, for example, that it will spin up agents, and each agent has a specific area of expertise or focus in the larger piece of work. And so you can start to get this sense, and I demoed some of this for a few minutes in my talk yesterday, of what it's like as a kind of leader of multiple agents to orchestrate them. And the orchestration, it sounds like a fancy term. I mean, it's really just if you think of the conductor of a symphony orchestra, they're not issuing task-level commands to musicians, right? There's a shared context. Everyone understands that music. And the conductor is really just providing this sort of moment-to-moment guidance and responding to things in the room. And that's kind of what you're doing as a human orchestrator of agents in this kind of context. So we could say more about that, but this is really an emerging area that I would encourage all of you to engage with.
For sure. It's funny because recently I was communicating with a client, and I received an email from her, and I was like, this is an agent that just sent me this email. This does not sound like her at all. And so we actually, on the next call, had a good laugh about it. So it's sort of like, I trust you, we have a good relationship, but it's sort of like the agent needs to evolve and really, really understand her voice. So in that context, and Neil, you touched on it, in the workplace, what is it going to look like for us, right, in organizations and teams? How are jobs, roles, teams changing now that we're introducing a whole slew of agents, and we are now in a position to sort of orchestrate and manage?
I think so. We will give, already there isn't anything I do where I don't first ask AI for feedback on my draft attempt at that thing. It makes me better at emails, better at speeches, better at answering these questions, everything I do has AI a little bit. As you all start using AI for all the things, you're going to then start to understand, what is AI's reliability rate? You all have websites, and your website SLA, your service level agreement, might say 99.9% uptime. So 0.1% of the time the website's down or somebody hacked it or there's maintenance or whatever. Your AI bots are also going to have an SLA, and it's not going to be 100%. So right now they're pretty poor, but they'll get better and better and better. Let's say they get as great as website uptime. So you have 3 nines or 5 nines of reliability for your AI agents. Heather probably correct this stat because she knows the actual number, but people make about 35 decisions a day. 35,000 decisions a day. If your AI agent that's trying to make all the decisions to do all your work has the same reliability rate of your website, there will be 35 mistakes that your AI is making every single day. 35 mistakes in this needle in a haystack of 35,000 operations. Your job isn't go to the beach and get universal income. Your job is looking for needles in haystacks. You're going to come in every day and you're going to look at everything it did on your behalf. You're going to find the things that need to be redone. You're going to find the bots to fire, just like a leader of a conductor would. His most important job is fire the bad musicians. That's your job too. So that's what I think we're changing.
Yeah, and to kind of even generalize a little further, I mean, you've probably heard people talk in the last few months, especially at the intersection of technology and work and business, that our focus as humans is going to be less doers, more deciders, and this ability to understand what good looks like. I mean, some people, I mean, certainly like Rick Rubin in the creative dimension, you know, are talking about taste, right, and the value of taste and what good looks like. And what good looks like is contextual, right? I mean, it depends on your customers, you know, what your outcomes are, what the mission of your business or organization or even your personal mission is.
Right.
But I think this is where the moment that we're in is, I find really exciting because, you know, you mentioned AI is prompting us increasingly, and you talked about the relationship that we have with AI. I do think these terms, like relationship, are really valuable. I use them as well. But the exciting thing is that, in a way, AI is kind of holding up a mirror to us individually and as humanity, and like asking, like, what do you want? What do you value? What does good look like to you? And let me help you fulfill that, right? So I think with the right relationship development, I think we can get amazing outcomes in every domain of our lives and work, you know?
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. The key there is relationship, and I love this metaphor as orchestrator and conductor, because it implies that we're not just passive in this process, we're active in it, and that's absolutely critical. And we know from decades of brain research that the brain is a terrible babysitter. We're not good at just pure vigilance and observation for extended periods of time. And so don't just put an input in and put a prompt in it and let AI spew out thousands and thousands of words of results. You know, we need to be doing this in a piecemeal way that actually reflects our intelligence and what we need and what our goals are. And AI will go off on very lengthy, shall I say, rants?
Sure.
It feels like rants.
Yes.
And that's not always what we need. And what AI lacks that we will always have as humans is judgment. We have judgment, and that judgment is based on our prior experience, our knowledge, our context, our emotional involvement. If something just doesn't feel right, there's a reason it doesn't feel right, and your brain knows exactly why, even though you may not be even aware of that. You're not always aware of what your brain is doing, but it's always doing something for a reason. And I love, Dan, when you talked about drafts. I love that you use the word draft, because you're not just asking AI to create something for you, you're asking it to evaluate and elevate what you've given it. And I think it's really important that you always think of something first before asking AI to come up with an answer. Your brain reserves the right to a first draft.
And so what is actually happening in the brain, Heather, when now we're in a space and in a world where we are now managing multiple agents? What's the risk there? You know, just quickly help us understand what's happening in the brain, and then I'll go to you, Neil.
Yeah, the risk is that we become passive about it, and if we become passive about it.
Sorry.
Bless you.
Cough.
With the microphone 2 inches. Apologize.
Wake up check. Is everybody awake? Everybody's awake? Okay, we're good.
I should have done that at the beginning.
You know, that was actually really great. I don't mind that. That gives me a moment to say, so we're going to continue in about 5 minutes. We're going to go into Q&A. So start thinking about your questions and thinking about who you want to address your questions to. So that is, so
yeah, so
That's clearly the risk, right?
that's the risk right there, is that AI is going to cough on you and you're going to,
that's hilarious.
If we're talking about managing a number of agents, I think the risk is that we become passive in that, just as the risk is that we become passive in individually interacting with an agent. And if that's the case, then why wouldn't we just have an agent whose job it is to manage other agents? And then you end up with your pyramid scheme of agentic AI.
Yeah.
And the risk is that as humans, we become further and further and further removed from what the actual value of AI is. And the value is in how we interact with it and partner with it, but in a responsible way, as Neil was talking about.
Yeah, I would just add to that. I mean, I guess I'll put it as a question to all of you. I mean, how many of you in the room have been an individual contributor, like a specialist practitioner of some skill, and then you got really good at it, awesome. There's another second part. You got really good at it, so you got promoted into managing teams of people with that specialization. And then maybe you got even promoted further, and then you're managing teams of teams, and you're a managing director, and things like this, right? What I'm describing here is the way in which, at least in our hierarchical organizational structures that we've all grown up in, what tends to happen is over time, people are promoted into these oversight positions where they lose the ability to do that thing that they're overseeing, right? And I think it's very similar, right? What we're looking at with AIs and agents is that as we delegate more, to get the benefit of delegation, whether you're delegating to a human that reports to you or delegating to an agent or set of agents or teams, to get the benefit, you need to not be in that work all the time. You need to be able to oversee it, decide what good looks like, to steer the ship or conduct the orchestra, but not be in the weeds of it. But there's this balance. Some of this is personal choice, right? I mean, I've talked to many managers or, business leaders over the years who are like, I used to be a great coder and now I have no idea like how to write software anymore. Not that that even matters for anybody at this point because AI is coding better than the best developers in the world. But that aside, all of this is to say, for me, it comes back to intentionality. Like, what do we each individually and then collectively as organizations, as a species, right, value to maintain our skill and expertise with, right? I think this is the first general purpose technology, AI, that is about intelligence itself and not just, supporting our intelligence work. And so it's a qualitatively different kind of general purpose technology than just the internet or computers in general. But I think that makes it all the more important that we are very, very intentional about what we delegate and what we sort of keep for ourselves to decide about, right? I mean, decisions, we make 35,000 decisions, and some of those are just about like, was that sound a scary one? Should we be worried about that sound or not, right? And it happens instinctively. But some of those decisions are much more important than others, right? And those are the ones we're talking about.
For sure.
Right.
Okay, who is excited about Agentic AI? Raise your hand if you're excited for it. All right. Who is nervous about Agentic AI? Raise your hand. Okay, yep, we're still splitting the room. I say 80 to 85% of us. Okay, so here is my challenge for all of you. It's, the train has left the station. It's not a matter of whether we're going to deploy Agentic AI or not. It's really about building that trust infrastructure in organizations, with one another, to ensure that whatever we put in place, people need to trust us. They need to trust you if any of this is going to work. So we're almost at a close, and I'm going to open it up for Q&A, but I'm going to do a little bit of a lightning round. So 10 seconds or less, my friends.
10 seconds.
10 seconds or less. Less, okay? Give me your honest answer and share these with the room. I'm going to start with Heather. One human skill you want every person in this room to protect, no matter how powerful the agent is.
Curiosity, hands down, absolutely.
Clap. The one word that I keep coming back to is intention or intentionality, which for me and maybe for you as well calls to mind, like, what do I really care most about? So it's kind of an opening into that.
Right. For me, it's judgment. Like, if all of us said to, hey, ChatGPT, what shoes should I wear on stage today? Like, we would have not looked like this. Your own personal taste, what you want out of the world, what you like, what you don't like, that's individual for each of you, and you should preserve that forever.
One AI capability you want everyone to actually practice this year. Be as specific as you can. Heather.
I want people to use AI as a collaborative thinking partner. Get it to prompt you back, get it to challenge your assumptions, and get it to help you scaffold what you think the future should be for the particular task you're doing.
Perfect. Neil.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't really say it better myself. You kind of stole my answer, but I would say maybe if I could add slightly to that, and kind of build on what Dan was saying about drafting. One of the things I would encourage, if you haven't done it already, is a first draft of something can just be speaking an idea. So like in the car here this morning from my Airbnb, I was thinking about something I wanted to say or something I wanted to write up, and I just spoke to Claude and collaborated with it. It was a thought partnership kind of thing. And came up with something that neither of us, I think, would have come up with on our own, myself or the LLM, right? So I think that kind of practice of getting into the habit of thought partnership and co-creation.
Excellent. Thank
really
you,
valuable.
Neil. Thank you. Dan.
I think for me, one of the things I do almost all the time is I'm recording myself right now, this little microphone here. I'm going to record what I do today, all the questions. I'm going to upload that into ChatGPT, and I'm going to say, what could I have done better today? Everything I do, I get feedback right after I did it, and it helps me improve gradually over time.
Great. All right, this is the last question before we open it up for Q&A. Complete this sentence in one breath. Healthy human-AI collaboration looks like...
I'm going to go back to curiosity. It involves using AI to preserve your curiosity and using it as a thinking partner.
Excellent. Neil. Healthy AI-human collaboration looks like...
I want to just put out this concept of symbiosis, right? It's I really think of AI as a kind of new species that has a life of its own, and I want us to think about how can we create a symbiotic relationship.
Yeah, for me, it's just, there's no version of the future where I don't imagine, double negative, sorry, everyone's still going to have work. That's it. We're going to use AI, it's going to be a great tool, it's going to make us all better, and we're all going to still have jobs.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, everyone, before we open it up, I want to leave you with something. We came here today and asked the question, is it brains or bots? Are we competing? Are we collaborating? But I hope you're walking away with something else, a third answer. They are co-evolving. So this co-evolution, it means that you and I have agency on how this thing goes, okay? We're not bystanders in this story. So everyone, please help me and thank Dr. Heather Collins, Neil Redding, and Dan Chuparkoff. Thank you. All right, we're going to take questions. Please introduce yourself, state who you'd like the question to go to, and then please ask your question.
And no lectures. Okay.
No lectures, yes. One question, yes.
Thank
We've
you
got about 10 minutes.
for the panel. It was amazing. It's not usual panels. This was pretty good. So, quick question, and it can be one of yours quick for everyone if they want. What's the most unusual or one unusual way in which you use AI overall? What's something
Let's start with Dan.
You don't see everywhere?
Let's see. As a coach, I think is the thing that I do that made some of you go, oh, that's the thing that, like, it's such an easy opportunity and not many people are doing it. They're still like using it as a search engine. And so thinking of it like the executive coach that only cost me $20 a month instead of like, $800, that's what I do with it.
We're going to just have you answer that because we've got a lot of people waiting for questions. So thank you so much for the
I didn't
question.
introduce myself. Luis, work design future scenarios as well. So I forgot a very clear instructions
Very
and
nice
I forgot
to
that
meet
part. Thank
you.
you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you for the session. We see a big risk with the teams currently, and addressing probably the two of you. If you look at AI power users, and they get rid of those time-consuming tasks, they are left with a very small tasks that are high cognitive density. So if they are in this density for 2 or 3 hours, they pretty quick burnout. So any tricks or strategies how to solve that in a corporate world, that if you get rid of those tasks that gave you the chance to rest the brain a bit, and are only focusing on the very, very dense tasks.
Heather.
Yeah, so I want to say that treat it like a marathon, not a sprint. First of all, you can engage in cognitively dense activities for 2 or 3 hours at a time. I regularly get lost for hours on end, deep thinking and deep creation and deep writing. So it can happen, and actually you can train your brain to like it and enjoy it. I would say even within those long periods of time, what you need to do is you need to take a break, ideally every 15 to 20 minutes, because that'll essentially reset your brain's default mode network, and that network needs to be refreshed every 15, 20 minutes to keep yourself sharp. So do the marathon, but take breaks in between.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Next question, and please, you would like the question to be addressed to? Otherwise, I will, or we will choose.
This is a question for Dr. Collins. First off, I'm Spiro. I'm a biomedical engineering student, and I'm working on machine learning for EEG signals and brain-computer interfaces.
Awesome.
If we start viewing AI not just as a tool, but as an external neocortex, what part of human cognition do you think we'd be most willing to offload in exchange for entirely new cognitive abilities?
Well, I think it's going to be rote memorization. Rote memorization's great, but if we can actually offload that and offload rote memorization in favor of really, really higher order thinking and more accurate affective and cognitive forecasting as to what the future is going to be like. And honestly, time forecasting too. Humans are terrible at understanding how long something takes. I think we should all have that cognitive skill improved. I think that'd be worth it.
Fantastic. Thank you. Next question. Introduce yourself and your question and who you'd like it addressed to.
Matthew Tanteri, leader of sustainable design for HOB Lighting. Question is for the neuroscientist. Okay, you've elegantly defined brains as meaning-making machines and that emotions and memory amplify and steer us, our cognition. So my question is, what part of the brain and how do we maintain it? That part of the brain that is the highway of our intentionality, the one we use prior to the act of agency or orchestration.
Yeah, intentionality is really important. So intention is actually directly related to attention. So as we know, right now it's really easy for us to get distracted. On average, we can maintain direct focus for about 15 seconds before getting distracted. And practice actually increases that attentional span. So I would say focus your brain's prefrontal cortex, gesundheit, and attentional networks, and attention will yield intention.
Fantastic. All right, we've got 4 more minutes. Please ask your question. Thank you so much.
You all. Heather, I have a question about, since we have the imperative to be more productive, to increase shareholder value, I understand that, but so more is more. And I was just wondering from a neuroscientist perspective, when is less more?
When is less more with cognitive
using
effort?
this?
Yeah, this is a really good question, and there's actually a really awesome brain result with this, and that is the more expert we are at something, the fewer brain resources we use. So the better you become at something, the more efficient your brain becomes, and this is really important because your brain is only about 2% of your body weight, but consumes 20% of your body's metabolic energy. So working at something and becoming good at it pays off in spades, and that your brain becomes really efficient and effective at the same time.
Awesome.
So we're really not getting Fridays off?
So what?
We're really not getting Fridays off to recharge? I was hoping that answer. Well, thank you.
Thank you so much for your question.
Hi, I'm Amanda. This is just for whoever. I feel like a big point that y'all have talked about today is how AI lacks decision-making skills. So my question is, how can we use AI to strengthen our decision-making skills and to grow and challenge us?
Who would like to take that?
Do you want?
I mean,
Go ahead.
yeah, you know, I think we've touched on it. I think, and Dan specifically, and I experienced this as well. Like you can ask AI and provide it context, right? But to critique, right? To critique what you say, what you do, what you've written, what you've said. Like I do it with like Keynote transcripts. In fact, you know, if I answered the question a minute ago about like maybe a surprising way of working with AI, like Claude Cowork, I've been using to develop my new Keynote, and it's amazing how deep in the weeds you can get. But the point is like continually critiquing, asking like, here's what I'm trying to do, and this is where intent comes in with inviting critique. It's not just, you know, generic critique, it's critique towards a specific set of ends, which brings us back to what does good look like in terms of what I'm doing. But I think, you know, this allows AI to keep us sharp as opposed to having certain aspects of our work atrophy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Love that.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sanchia, Director AI Transformation for a leading advertising agency. I want to ask, once you're able to get access to AI, which we mentioned, can be a big roadblock, what should the next focus be to, enable scale?
Dan?
I'll tackle that. The answer is different for every team. I think you should look at the thing that your team is spending the most time doing. Right? What's the most important thing that's consuming resources, or what is the most important thing your customers want from you? Try to apply AI to making that better before you start figuring out yeah, sure, AI can make better PowerPoint slides for your internal meetings, but that doesn't actually drive any customer growth. Focus on the thing that's most important to you because of a team consumption or customer value perspective.
Wonderful, thank you. One more question, and then we're at time. And if I could ask the remaining three, I apologize, unless you all can stay.
Yeah, we can.
More.
We can
stay.
just come up. If you have to leave to go to other sessions,
yes,
go ahead. We can do this until we get kicked out by these.
We good? Okay, thank you so much. Okay, let's continue. Perfect.
Hi, I'm Ryan Cole. Y'all spoke a lot today about how you see the future of the professional workspace as someone managing AI agents.
Yeah.
If that becomes the future of productivity, how do you envision education in the future?
Good.
Can I jump on that? I just spoke to the Texas Association of School Boards 2 weeks ago. We talked about that a lot. I think, what we need to do is start shifting the education system toward stopping the focus on memorization, rote memorization, the thing that Heather says we don't even need in there, and start focusing on higher level problem solving, critical thinking. Math has already, at one point in junior high or whatever, you shift from memorizing times tables to start getting word problems, right? All the subjects should start doing that. I don't want an English student to write an essay anymore. I want them to look at an essay and find the 10 things that are wrong with this essay. That's better thinking, and that's what you need on social media every day anyway. Is this post true or not? It's the most important skill, and nobody has it.
Yeah, I'm going to support exactly what Dan said. The emphasis is going to be on critical thinking and, in fact, developing these critical thinking skills earlier in education. And we're already seeing this happen. There are a number of schools around the country that are AI-centered and AI-focused schools, like Alpha House here in Austin. That's a good example of one. And what we've seen is that especially for gifted students, this really takes them and elevates them far beyond what their biological years will tell us they should be able to do. This really lets them take their full imagination and creative and critical thinking skills and really run fast towards the future. And that's, I think, what the future of education is. It's going to be AI integrated from kindergarten on, probably.
Yeah.
Awesome, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Next question.
Hi, Jan Zubko, Zeus IoT Devices. I was curious if energy sourcing and energy efficiency in form of electricity should be part of basic conversations in panels like that. Because I listened to several AI conversations, but nobody mentioned that.
Yes, point.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I think it makes sense to consider that question holistically with regard to everything else that we use electricity and energy for. I mean, I think that's maybe a non-answer, but I think it's got to be the answer, right? Like if we talk about water, for example, which is another big conversation around AI and data center uses of water. It's still, even with the level of data center build out that's happening now, still a very small fraction of water use compared to, I don't know, raising cows for beef, right? I think we could make, if everyone ate 10% less beef, I think we'd make a much bigger impact on water consumption generally than stopping data center build outs, So that's what I mean holistically. We want to look at trade-offs, and I think that it's challenging at this point to have, at least in this country, a society-level conversation about shared resources. But I think for however we do it, we have to get back to being able to have civil discourse about these things because they need to be answered holistically.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Darshan, I lead a function in designing AI chips. Okay, so I'm a chip designer by profession.
Did you say ships?
Chips, yeah, chip, computer chip.
Got it.
So my question to any one of you here is, it's a deeply technical field that requires a lot of critical thinking. And over the years when automation came in, I've seen erosion of that skill. And what is AI going to do when our next generation, about 30 years from now in South by Southwest, when you have the next generation of people sitting here, what is AI going to do there? Thank you.
I have a quick one. So I actually have thought a lot about this. So my husband, who's here in the front row, he's a senior software engineer, and he's been in the field for 30 years. And we're seeing something really interesting, and you're a chip designer, so I think it's related, which is that what he's doing now as a senior is he's employing all of his depth of knowledge in the higher order levels of coding and programming and things like that. And AI is doing what junior engineers used to do. The problem is, as you said, 30 years from now, there will be no senior engineers.
Exactly.
And so I think it's going to be a really interesting situation where there's a significant amount of pruning going into these tech fields, tech development fields. But we're still going to need some people to be senior engineers and senior chip developers to actually employ that judgment and decision making that's required.
Yes.
But how will they get that skill if they haven't done it from scratch? And that's the problem we are facing in the industry. Sorry to ask the second one, but it's a very critical one.
But because when I hire junior engineers, I don't make them make simple software. I have them be the QA engineer for already written software. And we still need that when AI people do bugs. Nothing has changed for me and my teams on hiring junior engineers. Some of that problem is hypothesis made by people that don't lead engineering teams. There is definitely some skill stuff that's going away, but I don't think that problem is as real as people say.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sylvia. I want to go back to a question that I think it was the very first question asked, and we just got one of the answers, and that had to do with what is the most unexpected use of AI that you do make yourself. So I'll be greedy, ask either one of you. I mean, you've already answered. So if I can just have one, maybe like 3 unexpected uses. Like, what are unexpected uses of AI? Please.
I have an unexpected one, which is I've been playing with AI to see what are kind of the weirdest things I can ask it to do. And one, which is a tip I got from somebody else, which is I upload a photo of myself and asked it to do my color palette for my wardrobe. And it was pretty accurate. And that was interesting to me. I also love doing the recipe thing where I tell it 5 ingredients I have in the fridge and ask it to come up with recipes, which these are just highly practical, fun things to do, but not quite as much professionally related. But I've enjoyed exploring the quirkier aspects of what we can ask AI to do.
I would add a third type of unexpected, maybe unexpected to some of you, usage, which is because I've done so much work in spatial computing, we didn't really talk about ambient computing, but helping computers understand the physical world over the years. And this is something that's been possible, say, with ChatGPT's mobile app on a phone for at least a year, maybe more. You can just take ChatGPT out, point the camera at whatever it is you're looking at, and have a conversation about what it sees in the physical world. And then you can build, because these tools have memory even just out of the box, over time, an understanding of the physical context that you work in most or that you hang out in most. And it will learn, just like it learns about the content of your work and how you want to get better at that work, it will learn about the physical context that you operate in and understand that more and help you figure things out. Like you talk about fashion, we could talk about like feng shui in a room, like where should things be placed? How should I think about this new room that I'm moving into or a new apartment I'm moving into? But involve it in physical context of your life and decision making that has physical context. I think that is a really interesting new domain.
Super, thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, mein Name ist Ute. I'm an organizational systemic developer. So mostly work with people, how they work. And what I heard about you about the relationship to AI, what is your answer if the field of usage from AI is not in your sweet spot, not in the field where you have the knowledge to be prompted back from AI, if this is not your sweet spot where you do your work, where you are creative, just if you use it as a tool to make dreams come true, to develop ideas more in a technical perspective?
I'm not sure I caught that exact question there. Like, as you start using AI to help you do more creative thinking
Not more
work?
creative.
Yeah.
If I develop ideas, for example, and if I understood AI as a tool to program ideas for myself, as a programming tool or other stuff, I'm not expert in that, so I cannot be prompted back about my models. I cannot be prompted back about intent most of the time. I cannot prove their answers.
Okay, so here's what I fundamentally think. AI learned from the consensus, right? It learned from all the stuff, the way people do all the things in the world. That kind of makes it a little bit above average in every possible topic. There's an exception in code, software code. It's really easy to see great software code on the internet, but it's way harder to understand great stuff in all the other industries. So what AI is going to do is make you average in everything else, and you want to be an expert in something. You still need to develop that without AI's help, really. Offload the other stuff, like being a better salesperson, being a better personal coach, and being a better communicator. But you still have to figure out, if you're trying to be an innovator with a brand new idea, all AI can do is plagiarize. It's the only thing it's capable of. So, that's an important thing to remember.
Shifts the whole system you described.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Lucian. I have a quick yes or no question to all four of you. Due to AI being so human-like, more than any other system we had before for the whole population, are you scared that big companies have way more data also in the emotional way about you and therefore have more power over you?
I'll start because I worked at Google. Like, we had every email address every email you ever sent, and nothing bad happened. Like, it's going to be fine. If one of those companies abuses access to some of that data, like, there will be a mutiny against them that shuts them down faster than Cambridge Analytica. And that, for anyone 8 years ago or whenever that was, it's going to be fine. There is some stuff, but there's no such thing as a big company. There's just 150,000 different people that all work at a company, and they're trying to do the right thing. And it's going to be mostly
Your answer is no.
What's that?
Your answer is no. You're not concerned.
By fine, you mean how life currently is?
Yeah.
At least today.
I'm not worried. I sleep good at night. That's my answer.
Neil?
Somewhere between yes and no. Like, I think there's a spectrum. What I would offer is how we show up and engage has everything to do with the outcomes in general, but certainly, for ourselves. So
we got to cut time, but not to interrupt. But yeah, we are getting, the next team is going to come in. But let's have a side conversation with you two as we start exiting the room, and if that's okay. Right?
You want to just share quickly your response?
Yeah, I'll say no. I'm with Dan. As a scientist, I love data. The more data, the better. And we're already approaching where there's this significant interaction between actual brain cells and actual computer chips. And the more data we have, the smoothly and the more better that's going to go. And I'm not afraid of it.
I'll say I'm in the middle with Neil. I've been in tech 20 years. This is not my first rodeo, but yeah, it's concerning. And it's happening.
Thanks,
so thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much.